Good evening and welcome to Fl33tway's Roundup with your host, of course, me, Darius. And I just want to first start off saying thank you all for your patience. I ran into some stressful technical issues with my streaming software as well as the computer, where, as I explained in a short that I dropped, it was just some connection problems that were going on where I couldn't even get the stream started. Had to go and restart my computer, which that took longer than normal. It's just a lot of things, but hey, that just means that this show is going to be a good one tonight, and that clearly something's trying to stop me from doing it, but I ain't going to stop. That just means that this is going to probably be a little longer than what it's normally going to be. You know, we normally try to get things done around 8:30. So now this could end up going up to 9:30. So just getting you prepared for that. But we're going to start getting things kicking off and started here. And the first thing to go and start off is we're going to go and jump into the sports side of things here. Because the reason I want to jump into the sports side is because two of the topics I'm going to be talking about a little bit later on tonight is going to be the longer topic. So I feel like I can get through more of the sports things a little quicker than the other topics that are going to be coming up. But first off, of course, as always, I've been keeping you guys updated and posted with a lot of the NBA playoffs. Recently, we've had two sweep closeouts of some games, one of them being last night's game that had the OKC Thunder playing against the Los Angeles Lakers, where the game ended 115-110. OKC swept LA 4-0. Lakers couldn't get anything going defensively. That's really where their problem came. They just couldn't really find a way to They just couldn't find a way to really get anything going defensively to stop OKC, SGA, Miller. They just really couldn't get anything going there. And now the Lakers are out. Hey, they put up a good fight, especially in that Rockets series. They did a really good job keeping up and putting up a good lead, and sadly it just wasn't enough to stop OKC on stopping them. So now OKC will move on to will be taking on, of course, the winner of the Spurs Timberwolves game, if I'm correct. And of course, then on the other side of things, there was a complete sweep from the New York Knicks, where they completely dog walked the 76ers, a team that also had some high hopes, especially pulling a massive comeback victory on the Boston Celtics, one of their rivals. And they just couldn't get anything going either. The Knicks were able to blow them out in multiple digit scores. So that's two back-to-back games that have been closed out very decisively 4-0, and now we have two of the remaining games here between the San Antonio Spurs and the Minnesota Timberwolves, as well as the Detroit Pistons and the Cleveland Cavaliers, where these series are tied up 2-2. The Pistons and Cavaliers will be facing off They'll be facing off in Game 5 tomorrow at 7 p.m. Central Time. And currently right now we have the Spurs and Timberwolves facing off in their tied series of 2-2 in Game 5, where right now the score is 54-40. It looks like the Spurs have a good lead on them in the quarter two, but we'll see how that possibly changes up. And Spurs, they're a really strong team, and especially considering that one of the other news that we got to talk about involving that Spurs-Timberwolves game is their star player in Wembanyama, who in his last game against the Timberwolves in the second quarter, pretty much early in the second quarter, he got ejected due to this foul that was placed on him from the clip that I'm going to be having playing in the background here, which I'm also going to make sure I have it muted. So
in the air like you just don't care. Let's
see here. So
what you got?
Muted. So yeah, as you're going to see here, Wembanyama gets the ball. He's getting double teamed, and then he clearly elbows the Timberwolves player here, where after this is all said and done, he's taken to the bench. The refs come over to him after making their decision. They say that it's going to be a flagrant foul and that this will foul him out from the rest of the game. Of course, there's a lot of questions up in the air, especially leading into Game 5 of whether or not Wembanyama was going to be suspended from this next game, or was he going to get fined. But there was really no consequences to the elbow to the neck. There was no consequences here. what happened is that he got suspended from the rest of the game 4, and he's back in now game 5 playing with the Spurs. And some people have their opinions on that. Some people feel like he should have at least been fined. Some feel, I think a lot of people all agreed that they don't think he should have been like suspended from game 5 due to this, but people thought that at least a fine or something would have been sent his way. But he seems he's walked scot-free for now, unless anything could change. There can always be updates. They may come back and say, oh no, we did end up finding him a select amount of dollars and stuff. So who knows? Your boy, I'll keep you guys posted in case anything does happen with that. But again, as always, we'll have to see. But it's like, hey, these playoffs are heating up, and they're getting pretty spicy. That's for sure. But one of our last little NBA discussions that we're going to talk about here is that with the NBA draft coming up pretty quickly, pretty soon, well, one of the big things that's going on right now is it was recently announced by the Milwaukee Bucks that they are seeking trade offers for Giannis. This has been something that's been discussed for a while. I remember before the trade deadline, it was being rumored that Giannis was starting to consider no longer wanting to play for the Bucks, and that they did basically open the door for him to seek trades, see if there was any teams that were interested in him and maybe wanted to do some trade offers. But it seems like the Bucks were putting a pretty high price tag, so no teams really went the full distance. The most I had heard was that the Warriors were a team that was very much considering trying to make a trade happen for Giannis, to really help try to get this team over the hump to get back to the playoffs and maybe even get back to the finals, considering Stephen Curry and Draymond Green, they're getting older and they're getting younger, and they can only keep that talent for so long. But sadly, the trade didn't go through. But now it's looking like we have reached an impasse where the Bucks, they're starting to finally see that there's just no way to keep Giannis, and now they are out there seeking to get a trade with him. So there's definitely a lot of options out there. There's definitely going to be teams. Of course, I'm rooting for my Warriors to maybe be able to put a offer on the table that's juicy enough for the Bucks to come out and be like, okay, we'll send Giannis your way. I just don't know how much we can offer to them trade-wise. So it's going to definitely be an uphill battle on if the Warriors can walk away with Giannis. Some people have been saying there's definitely a chance that the Rockets could be an interesting team that goes out there for him, especially considering they made it to the playoffs, and we all saw how the Kevin Durant trade kind of fell through for them, as they really just didn't look like a competent team in the playoffs against the Lakers. Another team that's getting brought up is the Boston Celtics, considering they were also another team that got knocked out in the first round of the playoffs, and by a rival at that too. So there's definitely rumors about that the Celtics could be considering that. Some people are even saying the Celtics could send Jaylen Brown to the Bucks, and they would get Giannis to pair up with Jason Tatum, which that's an interesting combo, that's for sure. So we'll definitely have to keep an eye on that, see what happens to the two-time MVP and Giannis, if he does, where he ends up, especially. And it seems like that those talks are going to only go up, like I said, especially with the draft. So the Bucks are going to definitely want to be trying to make this happen sooner rather than later, so they could maybe get some draft picks heading in, so they can maybe get some players coming up. So we'll definitely keep you posted on that for sure. Just keep on checking out with this show on Fl33tway's Roundup. But now we're going to go and transition over to the NFL side of things. And before we do start getting into some NFL news and what you may be even looking on your screen here, I have officially finished recording those 2 videos that at first it was supposed to just be one video where I was going to be breaking down my opinions on the first round of every NFL team's first round draft. I have finished that recording. So of course now I just got to work on that editing, but I also decided, just to kind of, as an apology for how long it's taken for me to get that done, I also recorded an additional second video. So kind of a 2-parter where I'm also going to be doing a tier list on every NFL team's outlook as far as going into the 2026-2027 season, on where I feel they stand, on if they are a Super Bowl bound team, if they're a playoff bound team, if they're a wild card bound team, and so on and so forth. So Trust me, those videos are coming. I plan on trying to work on getting those edited as soon as possible, but they are hour-long videos, so the editing process is going to take a minute, but trust me, I'm going to try my best to make sure that they're done in the best way possible that I can do, so then you guys are able to enjoy it and be able to get the information you need. But going away from that, to start off with our NFL news, we have now had a veteran tight end finally go off of the free agent board, as David Njoku has officially signed a 1-year deal with the Los Angeles Chargers for up to $8 million. And this man, he's been rocking with the Cleveland Browns for about 9 years, and now he's found a new home. It was a shock hearing when he hit into free agency, and I definitely knew that I thought he would have been off of the board a lot sooner than now of all times, because I feel like there's a lot of teams that you could definitely make arguments with that are tight end needy. Some would have said maybe like the Broncos, because Evan Ingram, he didn't really work out for them last season as much as everybody thought he would. So some people thought maybe the Broncos would have considered going out there to get him in free agencies. There were definitely rumors, I remember, before the trade deadline last year that the Packers were very much considering trading for David Njoku from the Browns, but that never went anywhere, and now even the Packers decided to pass up on him. So it was a surprise that no one was searching for him, because I do think he's a really good tight end. I would definitely say he's in the top 20. Maybe you can make an argument top 10 with his, but a lot of new tight ends are coming in, so maybe not top 10, but definitely top 20. He's a really good tight end. So the Chargers, they got a really skilled player there, and it makes sense, because considering that really the Chargers, they're really only tight end that they had last season that was doing anything for them was the rookie Oronde Gadsden. So it makes sense that they would want to get a veteran to pair up with him in the passing game for Justin Herbert, so at least he has more weapons to throw to. So I think this was a good signing for the Chargers. We'll have to just see how well they utilize him in that offense. But if I have any Chargers fans, how do you feel about David Njoku joining the Los Angeles Chargers? But the next set of news we got going on here is, you had heard in previous episodes, we had been talking about that Odell Beckham Jr. had been in talks with the Giants about a possible reunion for him to come back, even with him showing up to their training facilities with more discussions. Well, we did get kind of a recent update from Adam Schefter, where he reported from Jordan Rannon that Giants head coach John Harbaugh said he has talked to Odell Beckham Jr. 3 or 4 times over the past week about reuniting, but they will play it out over the next month and into training camp before making a decision. So it's going to be interesting. I think that this would be a smart move, considering that really, as it stands right now, the receiving room that the Giants currently have is really Malik Neighbors, Darius Slayton, then, of course, they have the tight ends like Isaiah Likely they picked up. So it's not the most, eye-catching type of room to work with for Jackson Dart. So I think, even though I know he's older, I still think that he still has some in the tank. I still think he has some in the tank. I think that his last season with the Baltimore Ravens, I don't think that was really on Odell Beckham. I really think that was just more so sadly that the Baltimore Ravens type of offense just wasn't able to really work out with Odell there. And so I think that if he does end up becoming a New York Giant again and coming out of not retirement, but coming out of this long hiatus, I definitely think there is a chance he will find a way to thrive. And I think that would be a solid piece to add into that receiving room for your young second-year quarterback in Jackson Dart. So we'll definitely have to see if there's any New York Giant fans that are watching this, or even, I know there's people that like to follow players, any Odell Beckham fans that are watching this. What do you think about Odell Beckham's return to the Giants, possibly being a possibility, but also being something that may take a little longer than some of us might have expected? Next thing is, in the next 2 days, Wednesday and then on Thursday, we will be getting officially the schedule release on May 14th, again on Thursday, where they will be dropping the full release of the schedule for the NFL. This is where they will basically, we already know which every team's opponents are going to be this season. We just don't know when the dates are going to be. And so they're going to be breaking that down, going over every single team's schedule. So we'll know what dates, what times, who's going to be the first Sunday night games, who's going to be the first Monday night game of the season, and so on and so forth. So definitely going to be keeping an eye on that. They've definitely been sprinkling a little bit of some teasers, letting people, they've been like dropping little posts here and there of like, oh, this is going to be this game and this is going to be that game. So it's keeping people intrigued and interested, at least be keeping their eyes peeled in case of that. And even I've been considering on Thursday that I might even go live, possibly to do a live reaction to the official schedule releases, maybe even share with you guys personally what I think will be some of the best games to watch or pay attention for in this upcoming 2026-2027 season. And you know what? Speaking of going live for that, but while I do break down some of the matchups that have been revealed, I'm actually going to put a little poll in the chat here where what I'm going to basically do is this poll is going to basically be asking for all the viewers who are tuning in, what do you think? Do you think that I should go live Thursday and do a live reaction to the official NFL schedule, breaking all that stuff down for you? Or would you guys not really care too much on that? So I'm going to do a little, like I said, I'm going to drop a little poll here in the chat where you guys will be able to look at that, vote yes or no. And while I'm breaking down the other schedules and some of the other news we got, I'll be keeping my eyes peeled on it and see what the final result is. So give me 1 sec here. I'm going to be putting this in the chat. Right, and there we go. I just started a poll in the chat. So for anybody that is watching currently right now, it is going to take a minute probably to get properly loaded on there. But once it is, you'll be able to see it, and you'll be able to look in and select your answer on what you think. Do you think I should go live Thursday night to break that down, or just pass on over on it and just do a typical, maybe a YouTube short, or maybe even just add that in on my next week's episode? But while I am waiting to see what kind of responses we get, and I'll be constantly monitoring it to see what we get. Some of the first schedules that have been revealed is we have our first Sunday night game of the season on September 13th. It will be the Dallas Cowboys facing off against the New York Giants, who will be hosting the Dallas Cowboys. So that's our first Sunday night game. That's one that typically I would say I'm not too interested in. I mean, that's typically one of those kind of matchups that maybe say last year, beginning of the season, you maybe wouldn't have been as interested in, considering like the Cowboys lost Micah Parsons and all of that. So it was a little bit down season, but now there's a little more, I think, hype that could go behind this, considering that you have John Harbaugh's first debut as the new head coach of the New York Giants facing off against the Dallas Cowboys in a rivalry that's been going on for a while. And hey, we get to see if George Pickens does end up sticking around with the Cowboys. He'll be back on that line. So we'll get an offense that was looking really good last season go up against a young up-and-coming offense and just overall New York Giants team. So I think that this could be a pretty fun game to watch when it comes on. I don't know if I would say that this is like one of my most anticipated matchups of the season, but I would definitely say it is like, okay, there's something to get from this. One of our next matchups is another Dallas Cowboys one where we got our first Thanksgiving game announced that will be the Dallas Cowboys hosting the Philadelphia Eagles, one of the most heated rivalries out there. They will be one of the Thanksgiving games that we will have at 4:30 p.m. Thursday afternoon on Fox. So a heated rivalry for the ages between the Eagles and the Cowboys, and we'll be able to see that on Thanksgiving, which you normally know Cowboys are kind of always a shoo-in for a Thanksgiving game. They always find a way to get a Thanksgiving matchup, kind of similar to even kind of similar to my Packers. My Packers too. They've been one of those teams as well that typically will have a Thanksgiving game. There's always those teams that are almost guaranteed to have Thanksgiving games. And that's only been the Cowboys and the Packers for sure. So we'll have to definitely see maybe which Packers matchup ends up being one of the other Thanksgiving games. I normally, if I'm correct, they have 3. If I'm correct, I think it's normally 3 games that are on Thanksgiving. So definitely we'll have to keep our eyes on that for sure. But one of the other next matchups that we have is this one should be a fun one. This will be the Buffalo Bills hosting the Detroit Lions. And why I would say that this is a matchup that I'm like, okay, there's something to get from this, because this will, as it even says from Adam Schefter here, this will be shown in the Bills' new stadium. If you don't know, the Bills, they've been working. We know that last season was their last year in their current stadium that they were at, and they've been constantly actively working on a new stadium for the Bills. So this will be kind of like one of our new looks into their stadium, because I would think because this is in week 2. So I would think in week 1, we don't know. The Bills' week 1 game, it sounds like their week 1 game is going to most likely be an away game. So this will be our first game getting to see the stadium in person. So I definitely would say I'm excited about this. I can't wait to see how this new stadium looks. And actually, too, we have a little video teaser from Buffalo showing off a little bit of the new stadium. So I'm excited. And also, too, I think what's exciting is that these have been 2 teams that some people have predicted to go to the Super Bowl against each other, which sadly has never happened. Both teams just not being able to get over that hump in the other opponents they face off against. So I'm definitely would say that this is it. If I do decide to do a live reaction to the schedule release, I would say that this is an anticipated matchup just to see Jared Goff and Josh Allen face off against each other. This will be a fun game for sure. And like I even said, we actually do have a little video here showing the new Highmark Stadium. As you can see, they're showing it off. And too, because remember, the Bills' old stadium, they didn't have the closing roof. Well, we're seeing now the Bills will have a closing roof, so no more snow on those seats like we've seen before. And I mean, it's not too much anything like impressive wise, but yeah. So that is their home opener, is the Thursday night football game in their new stadium. And I think overall it looks good. I think it looks pretty solid. I know a lot of people have talked about the Bills need to get a closed-in stadium, which I think is a shoo-in for any team. Getting a new stadium is hopefully one that closes up so to face the weather and the elements. But yeah, I think it looks nice, and I can't wait to see what it looks like in person, live on camera. And I think Bills fans definitely are excited about it. And I know that I think just overall the NFL world is going to be pretty excited about it. So you share your opinions. What do you think about our first look at the Bills' new stadium being on Thursday night against the Detroit Lions? But now we are going to go and move on to our next set of news here, which is going to be some video game news. I know some people that might be watching it might be too old to enjoy video games or might roll their eyes when they're like, oh, we're going to talk about video game news. But trust me, this one is, I think there's enough to talk about here with this particular video game that's going to be like, oh, that's an interesting topic. But the video game we're going to be discussing here is Mixtape. I apologize for that. Just making sure to keep these vocal cords strong and ready to keep reporting this news for you guys. But we're going to be talking about the newly released game Mixtape. This game, I've seen some clips. I've seen multiple clips, but I have seen a few clips here discussing this game, breaking it down. And I mean, the visuals on it look really good. And it sounds, from what I've seen from the reviews, a lot of people have been saying that it's a coming-of-age story, really good and all that. And this game has been getting 10 out of 10 reviews from have been getting a lot of 10 out of 10 reviews from a lot of these game journalists like IGN. Let me see. I could even probably check some of these here, like PC Gamer. Let's see. They put 74. Let's check it out what they said. We want to get that score. Give me one sec. So this one was actually more of a critical review, but it's the reviews that is what's causing the controversy behind this game, because as I said, there was a lot of game journalist news outlets that have been giving this game straight up 10 out of 10s, 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, saying it's one of the best video games of all time this year, and it's even sounded like this game could easily become a candidate for Game of the Year. The problem is that actual gamers who have been playing this game are running into one simple problem. And even as you might have saw on PC Gamer, they even said it makes me feel like the game makes me feel like I don't even need to put my input. And well, that is where the controversy is now starting to come in, where actual gamers have been playing this game, and there has been a lot that has been said that a lot of videos have been showing people just simply lifting their controller up, not pressing any buttons, nothing, or even if you hear in the background, they're snapping their fingers or maybe tapping their table, showing that they're doing nothing. And as I'm going to show in this clip here from Michael Does Life, I've seen a few videos with him reacting to stuff and streaming video games. As you're going to see from Michael Does Life, in his clip, you're going to see he lifts his controller up, does not press a single button, and yet the game, it's almost like it's moving on his own. And once this clip is done, and I'll explain why this is causing some controversy here.
The gameplay. I'm not doing anything. Hands free, by the way. Hands free, by the way. The game plays itself. Hands free. There's no game here. Hands free. You don't even have to play it. Oh my God. You don't even have to play it. Don't even have to play it. Wow. Where's the gameplay?
So for some people that maybe aren't gamers, they might not understand where the problem lies with this. But as you saw, even he asked the question, where's the gameplay? This is supposed to be a video game, and yet as you saw, for a good 30-something seconds, he just sat there, held his controller up, and the game moved on its own. And that's a big problem. That's what's causing this controversy, because people are looking at this and are like, how did this game get a 10 out of 10? And for all these acclaims that it's one of the best video games this year and that it's such an experience, well, that's the problem. It's an experience, not a video game. This, honestly, and even I'm going to go to a post I made where seeing the clips I've seen, and I'm just like, dude, this isn't a game. This is a glorified movie, but they didn't want to pay the money to make a movie, so instead they made a video game. And that's what's making it, and people are starting to get suspicions that this game could end up becoming an industry plant. Now, if you don't know what an industry plant is, this is the term that is coined by a lot of people online, where it is a game, movie, some kind of product that gets forced into a space and gets all, where you notice it gets all this love and attention, but when real people start to look at it, they're like, wait a second, this isn't really that good, or this isn't really as entertaining as it's been claimed. But wait a minute, why are all these people saying it's so good? For example, I'll share like some little, try my best. It's basically when they try to force something onto you, but clearly it's not getting the attention that they were looking for, but they continue to force it because they're trying so hard. For example, Marvel Comics, they had a industry plant character. Her name was Luna Snow. her name was Luna Snow. She appeared in a mobile video game, and she was introduced into a mobile video game. And that was her first introduction. But guess what? As soon as she was introduced to this mobile video game, she then started getting comics left and right. They started trying to make her a main character and stuff. This is a Reddit from 1 year ago. This is involving with Marvel Rivals, a recent game that just came out, which we actually will be talking about briefly in a second too. But someone said Luna Snow has to be an industry plant. She has the best ult in the game, which makes her completely CC immune. So it breaks down a lot of stuff, but this isn't really the best example. The reason I'm trying to use it as an industry plant, she was introduced in a Marvel mobile game, so she wasn't even like a long-time comic book character. But as soon as she was introduced in this mobile game, she started getting comics left and right. They started trying to push her as this new interesting X-Men mutant for people to follow and stuff. Here's the problem though: people weren't really buying her comic books. No one was buying her comic books. No one seemed to care about her. And yet, even though it was obvious no one wanted to care about her, they started pushing her into more and more Marvel games. And over time, now she is starting to finally get a fan base where people are liking her, probably more so thanks to Marvel Rivals. But before Rivals, she was seen as an industry plant. And so I hope that kind of gives a little bit of an idea of what an industry plant is. And essentially what's going on is that people feel this game is getting this massive push where people are fearing that these game journalists are getting paid off. They're getting paid massive amounts of money from the studio or company behind this game, so then they could give these kind of generic, super positive, super high-end reviews talking about how great and beloved this game is going to be and how much it deserves to win Game of the Year, which is for those who don't know, the Game Awards, that it is a big event at the end of the year in December where they kind of give awards to games that release in the year, praising them for different categories like best soundtrack, best voice acting, best this, best that. And then of course there's the Game of the Year, which is their votes of what is the best game. And so people are starting to fear that all these game journalists are getting paid off to give high-end reviews for this game so it can easily win Game of the Year. But when actual people are playing it, they're noticing that this game really doesn't have a lot to it, except for what I've seen from a lot of people. People are like, okay, the story is decent. But a lot of people are saying, I would have given this a 7 out of 10 or a 7.5 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10, but not a 10 out of 10. This is not a 10 out of 10 game. But the most important controversy behind this game is that people aren't actually playing it. You could just put your controller down and the game will control your character on its own. And it's like it's an experience. It's a glorified experience. It's a glorified movie where really you just sit back and watch everything happen, where maybe there's a few moments where you control things, but the things you do control are some of the most mundane, doesn't really matter things out there. And people, when they're playing video games, they want consequences. And you have these moments where there's these quick time events. For those that don't know, a quick time event is where something's about to happen and the game slows down, where you have to make sure you press the right buttons so that your character does not suffer the consequences, where they can maybe fall off a cliff. They could actually run into something. They could actually get stabbed, get shot. All that kind of stuff can happen. But the quick time events in this don't really matter. You can mess it up and your character's gonna still keep moving. And that takes away. Someone actually broke down some things with this, talking about how the game is automatically moving. And they said they were QRT to post, where it said the fail state for me is how the scene doesn't fit or simply isn't cool. If I mess it up, the fact I didn't encounter any fail states on my run of this during my playthrough was what made it such a highlight. Someone said, nope, welcome to where game design meets business. If they have fail states, that means you need to make dynamic audio adjustments to the licensed soundtrack, which that's another thing that's kind of being controversial, is that this game has loads of 80s, 70s music, and people feel that this game is also trying to is kind of trying to be predatory towards nostalgia baiting and going after people's nostalgia to get all these positive reviews and everything. But once you take away the nostalgic music and all of that, it's a nothing burger of a game. There's even a funny meme of a scene where there's these riffs of the music kicking in, and I listen to it and I'm like, this is the most cringe thing I have ever heard in a video game, where the dialogue just does not sound good at all. And I'm even hearing the characters in this game aren't endearing whatsoever, which is just like, there's a lot of problems. But as I said, you would have to make adjustments to the licensed soundtrack. This requires negotiation and a higher budget. It's far easier and cheaper just to have game run automatically so the track syncs with what's happening on screen. Even giving the player control of the character's movement, like their speed, would screw everything up. It isn't artistic, it's lazy, and the fact that so many media critics didn't catch this should tell you something. So they're essentially saying that the reason this game is most likely running on its own is because the studio couldn't really bother themselves to actually go in, slow the game down, make all these new negotiations for the licensed soundtrack, so then people could have mistakes in their game. And so that's what led to this game that runs on its own. And like this person said, it's lazy. There's no effort putting into this. And I even made a post on my social media too, breaking this down, where I said, and I quote, "This just disappoints me, bro. What makes video games special is the interaction. The fact that you have to pick up your controller and control your character, whether decisions or actions. The moment you take that away from the player is the moment you completely missed the charm that a video game is supposed to have. Don't let these game journalists fool you into thinking this is anything more than a glorified movie at this point." And I stand by that, because that's, like I said, that is the charm of a video game, is the fact that you have to pick up your controller, that you control your character's actions and decisions, and that there's consequences behind those decisions. Once you take that away, there is no point of it being a video game at that point. It is just a glorified movie that's then trying to cash in on the video game landscape. And I don't like that. It just ruins what is video games. Even for some of my older audience that might be watching this, you can't tell me that there wasn't maybe a chance that you played some classic Mario or classic Donkey Kong or classic Pac-Man, that you experienced some sort of joy in moving that little joystick to move Pac-Man, to collect the pellets and avoid the ghost, that you had to use your mind and brain knowledge and skill to make sure that you knew how to properly maneuver around the ghosts as they would get faster, chase you around more. It would become harder, that you wanted to make sure you didn't get yourself stuck in a corner so you could collect more pellets, while you also had to save those power pellets. So then if the ghosts were starting to maybe catch up to you, you made sure that, okay, I can collect all these pellets, but then I could go and get the power pellet and be able to eat them, so that I could collect more. So there's a lot of strategy that goes into that kind of stuff. And like I said, when you take all the control away, you're taking away the fun that makes a video game fun. So I think I shared enough on this topic. You share down below in the comment or even the chat, what do you think about this game Mixtape, and that it's just a glorified movie that essentially just it doesn't respect its player base at all, and just really doesn't respect you enough to really make your own decisions, and just thinks that you just want to sit there and watch everything, which that there's more to video games than just that. So again, share your opinions down below. What do you think about this game? Do you think that the controversy is warranted, or do you think that people are just maybe overreacting about it? But one of our little next things that we're going to be going into is, as I mentioned earlier, a game, Marvel Rivals, is an ongoing Marvel game where it is going into its next season, and they just dropped their official trailer for this season. I'm not going to be stopping the stream here or anything to play it with the audio. I'm going to be playing it in the background. So in this they showed off that this season is going to focus on the main kind of villain of this story is going to be Alchemax. They've been a well-known kind of evil villain organization. And as you can see here, for any X-Men fans, one of the heroes they revealed for this next season is none other than Cyclops, one of the leaders of the X-Men, who will be one of the upcoming characters. And man, this animation is just gorgeous. Look at this. I mean, the impact frames, the movement, the dynamic, the art style, everything about this. I watched this trailer earlier today, and man, and then that's the other character that was also shown off was Moon Girl. She's a recently famous character in Marvel Comics as well as media, where she even has her own show called Moon Girl, a Devil Dinosaur, her pet, who is actually going to be the second playable character in this game. But of course, as you see, he gets captured by Alchemax. Moon Girl gets captured as well, and that's kind of what leads into the story of Season 8, whereas you're about to see in the next few minutes here, where her pet, Devil Dinosaur, his little necklace goes off, and he wakes up, meaning he's going to go and save his girl, Moon Girl there, and possibly also be helping save Cyclops. So I know there's a lot of Marvel Rivals fans out there, and even some that have watched this show. I know that they're out there. They're excited. I'm excited. I can't wait to see how this new season kicks off on May 15th. I'm definitely excited for sure, especially to see the boy Scott Summers, Cyclops, make it into the game. If I do have any X-Men fans, how do you feel about Cyclops being the next character for Marvel Rivals? But speaking of Marvel, our next little set of news is The Punisher, One Last Kill. We have actually briefly talked about this upcoming Marvel special little one shot that's going to be releasing on Disney Plus actually tonight. And we've talked about it. We did talk about how Punisher is going to be showing up in the new Spider-Man movie, Spider-Man Brand New Day, and how this little one-shot special presentation is going to be kind of a thing that kind of segues into his appearance in Brand New Day, and also kind of giving us a little bit of an in-between of his last appearance in season 1 of Daredevil Born Again, and how he broke out of prison from after he was locked up by Kingpin, and how he broke out and what he's been doing since then to the upcoming Spider-Man movie. But yeah, so we got a new poster that has been inspired by Call of Duty Black Ops, showing Frank Castle here in his new Punisher suit. Yeah, and even like some of the comments, it's lit, boys. I mean, I know exactly which poster of Call of Duty they're referencing. Man, I love John Bernthal. His portrayal of the Punisher has been fun in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and even in the Netflix series where he was first introduced. I've been glad ever since they brought him back to the MCU to reprise his role. He's been doing such a good job, and John Bernthal, he's always going to give a high-octane, fun performance as the Punisher, and I'm very much excited to see what he's got cooking up in this short. I definitely plan on watching it as soon as possible when I can, but this poster looks sick. And we also did get a little clip as well, and I will be playing that, turning my little webcam off here to play it. Hopefully this episode doesn't get copyright striked like the WWE. Hopefully they're a little more lenient on reactions to this type of stuff, but we did get an official clip here from the special one shot that's going to be streaming tonight, and I'll be playing that here in a second.
Deaths of the notorious Minucci crime family, violence and tension filled the streets of Little Sicily as a power vacuum has left the neighborhood vulnerable. Reports link former veteran-turned-vigilante Frank Castle, a.k.a. the Punisher, as the main culprit behind these murders, after it was alleged that the Nucci's were one of the last criminal organizations linked to his family's death. Frank Castle's whereabouts remain unknown.
I know you're in
And now for the weather.
Like I said, I mean, that clip, I gotta admit, that clip pulls me in. It's interesting to be seeing this because, of course, from what I've heard from certain reviews and stuff, is that this is going to be kind of, I'll just say this, from one of the reviews that I listened to, that this show is going to kind of be a reintroduction for maybe new Punisher fans that are not familiar with this version of the Punisher from the Netflix series, and it's kind of going to give it a reintroduction. But I heard that it's really good. The action's good. It's violent. When you can't do a Punisher thing without things getting a little rated R. So I'm excited. I mean, it looks good. Like I said, John Bernthal, he's going to put up, especially anybody that has watched the Netflix Marvel series or even Daredevil Born Again, he's going to put up a good performance as Frank Castle, the Punisher. So if I do have anybody that's any Marvel fans in here, you share down in the comments chat below. Are you excited for the Punisher One Last Kill coming on tonight on Disney+? But now, speaking of movie entertainment news, we're going to be going into our final topic of the night, which is the big one, the big fluff. This is why I decided to start this episode off with the sports news, to get through that stuff first, because this is going to be where I'm going to try to keep it as quick as possible so we can be done in a good time, but there's a lot to break down here, and this is going to be about the Amazing Digital Circus final act. You might remember in a previous episode a couple weeks ago, I did break down this finale. This is based off of a YouTube show that's been releasing the past couple months now, from Glitch Entertainment and also from the creator Gooseworks, where it's an indie animated show. It's been streaming free on YouTube for the longest. It's been setting milestones for the indie animation scene. Literally a day after release, it'll hit 1 million or 2 million viewers, reaching up to I think every episode has at least 20 something viewers or even more. It has done so much good for the indie scene, and even has done a lot of good for Glitch. And we talked about the recent controversy when it came to this movie, which is also a big milestone, that a independent studio like this is able to get its final episode dropped in theaters. And we talked about the recent controversy involving this, where a lot of the fans who are in other countries were feeling some kind of way that this movie was going to be shown in select countries early, meaning that they would most likely get spoiled of this big finale while waiting for it to come free on YouTube. And it caused a lot of controversy. It definitely caused a rift in the fan base, where there was fans saying, oh, you're too entitled, you're spoiled, why are you being so harsh to them, wanting them to do this, just stay off the internet, which is a dumb thing to say, because it's hard. I think I even explained how there's more that goes into staying off the internet to avoid spoilers. There's other ways to get spoiled. You would have to stay off of so many apps and social media networks to not get spoiled from this. But there seemingly was a good happy ending to this, where fans that were on the you're spoiled side, and Glitch themselves would say, like, we understand that you want this to come out, but what we need you to do is send emails out to your local theaters, make your voices heard that you want this movie to show in your country, so then we could work something out and have some leeway to make this possible. And people did it. People emailed their theaters. They were like, hey, we want the Amazing Digital Circus final act to stream in our country. Let's get this going. And sadly, while there was a happy ending, sadly there's been bad news, a lot of bad news, where first it was reported by TADC Turkey Eddie, I think that's how you pronounce it. This was a fan account that was pretty much giving updates to Turkey having the availability for the movie to show up, which originally they were like, it's going to be showing here in our country. Good news, we finally did it. But sadly, they broke the news that is no longer the case. And I will try my best to read this all. It's going to be long. It's going to be hefty. So I'll try to read this as quick as possible, while also being able to make sure that my words are clear and precise. They said, and I quote, "Final. First and foremost, we extend our heartfelt thanks to all you wonderful people who believed in us, trusted us, supported us, and walked this path alongside us. We had hoped that at the end of the day, we could step out and announce we did it, but sadly, the circumstances just aren't allowing for that. The blame for this doesn't lie with the laws of the Republic of Turkey, nor with distribution companies like Bird Films. The sole culprit in this story is Glitch Productions and KevDev's failure to manage the project properly, and they're getting carried away, ultimately botching everything. So what's going on is that it's been reported from a lot of countries where essentially this Digital Circus Finale episode movie has been randomly getting pulled, where originally these theaters are like, oh yeah, we have it. Now they're coming out saying as well, we did have the movie, but now Glitch has seemingly pulled out and have removed the episode from streaming in our theater, and we're trying to get in touch with them and respond and get some responses, but we've now been getting ghosted, where we're not getting any replies from Glitch themselves on what the status is on the future of if we're going to be able to get this done, and we haven't heard anything. So it's now had a lot of questions. People were wondering like, hey, where's the official statement? What's going on? We don't know what's happening. And it just was like a lot of question marks. And so Turkey was one of these people, and in this fan account, they broke it down. They go into some more detail here. To help you understand the situation better, I'll break it down point by point. Was Glitch Production really to blame? From the very first announcement of the Glitch film, just like Digital Circus fans in other countries, we banded together under the tag, which is their account, and tried to make our voices heard almost everywhere. We applied pressure, and at times we rebelled against distribution companies, but from what I've gathered in the end, Glitch Production buckled under the sheer volume of demand. They started ignoring communities like Digital Circus Romania, Digital Circus Turkey, Digital Circus Azerbaijan. Sorry if I botch any of your country's names. I apologize. I'm not the best with this, and others. On top of that, they cut ties with Korean film distributor SBM NE Corp and gave up on bringing the film to Korea, something I suspect we'll see more of in similar news in the coming days. Will it come to Turkey? To be brutally honest, no. It won't come to Turkey at this point. With just 1 month left until the film's release, we're hearing news of them pulling out of Korea and ignoring a company in Australia. And there's still no official statement from Glitch Production or Kev's Devs, one of the heads of Glitch Productions, who's behind there with, I think, his friend. And I think accounts more in tune with the industry, like Seven Tunes and others involved, would agree with me. After all this negative news and with only a month left, the chances of the film arriving are next to impossible. If I've let you down, toyed with your hopes, dampened your spirits, or played with your dreams, I apologize. On this journey, I set out on alone. You amazing people started accompanying me and walking alongside me, and it's incredibly hard for me to put into words how much that means to me. Thank you. I'll share 2 to 3 more posts related to this topic, and after that, we'll decide what to do next. Thank you for everything, and no, I'm not abandoning this count, but I no longer want to give anyone false hope for nothing, which is sad. It's sad reading that, because this person feels like they gave false hope to Turkey fans that this movie would come, and it's like, dude, all I'm going to say is keep your head up. This wasn't your fault. As you said, this is sounding more and more like a Glitch problem. Like they said, they buckled under the pressure. They received too many emails. And to me, my initial thought when I first was hearing this is, I didn't feel like this was being done with malicious intent. I felt like this was just a case of they were understaffed. They didn't have the right amount of people to respond to these emails, and that's why it's been taking them so long to respond back to continue forward. But sadly, my opinions on feeling sympathy for them have slowly dwindled the more and more information that comes out, where now it's starting to sound a little more like there's more to the story, and even like Glitch is purposely trying to spread misinformation to get their American fans to feel like it's the other countries that are the problem and not Glitch. Someone also reported, I'll try not to swear with what they said, they QRT'd that post from Digital Circus Turkey, where they said, gee, it's almost like I called this SHIT from a million miles away. So now Turkey, along with Romania, Australia, Azerbaijan, and South Korea, are no longer showing the film. There's a lesson to be taken away from all this, but I seriously doubt most will learn from it. Of course, people jumped on this person being like, oh, why you got to be so negative? And it's like, dude, it's like, I'm just saying, I called this stuff that it sounded like this was going to cause some problems, and it looks like he was right. And then it was being reported that Glitch is being sued by Korea. That was what was being said, and that was causing headlines of that, like, wait, Korea is suing them? And this was the official statement where it was said, today we filed an application for a provisional injunction for performance of supply with the Seoul Central District Court, naming Glitch Productions Party Ltd. as a debtor. This is due to the contractual stipulation designating the CO Central District Court as the exclusive jurisdiction for litigation, and the reason it is a provisional injunction for performance of supply is in accordance with our internal opinion to prioritize release as much as possible, while simultaneously aiming to prevent the debtor from refusing to submit the medium for unjust reasons. We will make every best effort to ensure that the film has the opportunity for release. As we have entered litigation proceedings, we ask for your understanding that we will not make any additional statements regarding our position from this point forward. And it's kind of funny because when this was announced, when people were wondering, like, were expecting or wanting some sort of reply or response, when it was announced that this was being said, which a lot of people thought this meant it was being that they were being sued, there's like, well, now we're never going to get a response. Well, we did get a response, which we'll get into, but essentially, then what I learned when reading this, I'm so sorry about that. What I learned from reading from this is that it doesn't sound like they sued them, more so that they're taking them to court to basically say if they win this case, Glitch cannot pull this movie away. And more information started to come out, where then it turned into this thing of that Glitch was apparently pulling this out because that Korea wanted to censor the movie and wanted to censor their movie, and they didn't want that. They wanted this movie to not be changed. Or it was also information saying, oh, well, apparently Korea wanted a physical copy of the movie on a USB drive, and they're like, well, we don't want it to get leaked. Like, so much stuff. But like I said, we have an official statement from Glitch, which, reading it, I don't like it, but we'll break into more of that soon. But for the person that said they're being sued in Korea, someone similar to what I said, they broke it down more. Technically not yet sued. SBM&E filed an injunction, which means if the court accepts it, Glitch has to honor the contract and release the film as planned. It seems like SBM&E is trying hard to make this work rather than fight Glitch. So if it works out, they might not sue them. So it sounds like Glitch is being more of the problem child in this situation than the distributor in Korea. But as you're about to see in a few seconds here, let's see here. Just wanted to make sure what that was all about. I saw that some Vision Quest news, which was a Disney Plus show that I feel has been swept under the rug, but we're going to keep moving on here with the digital circus news. So this is the official statement from Glitch. I've read it. I'm going to read it for my audience here. There's certain things about this where I'm like, well, that didn't really answer any questions. This is what they said, and I quote, "If there's been any theater cancellations or an inability to enter a region, we want you to know that we've been trying our best. There's ratings, compliance, security policy, and legal rules specific to each country and theater chains that we are trying to navigate around the clock. Some regions are straight up rejecting our distribution because there are censorship laws, and we refuse to change the original vision of this show in other regions. There are laws that say we can't due to how close it is to its streaming release. Any cancellations or refusals have been due to security concerns. For example, one distributor wanted us to email them the raw video file so they could then mail it to ratings agencies by post. This is how leaks happen, and we take this very seriously. This, however, does not mean we aren't still trying relentlessly to enter these regions. We also want this finale to be accessible in as many countries as possible. Thank you all for helping the digital circus finale get this far." And of course, already they got fans defending them, being like, so basically the fandom overreacted once again to try to cancel Glitch Part 3. That someone did the Spider-Man Spider-Verse meme saying, watch, people are going to start throwing a tantrum and say Glitch sucks, despite clarifying everything, which that I don't agree with. Someone then said, watch, a toxic fandom with zero understanding of film distribution is going to start bad-mouthing Korea just to shield Glitch. Clearly, Glitch was throwing Korea under the bus. It said there was a distributor that wanted this physical, that wanted a physical drive to be able to review this movie. That is Korea. They're trying to throw Korea under the bus here without specifically calling them out. And they're saying it's a whole lot of stuff like censorship laws. Well, here's the problem. People have kind of been calling the BS on this, that there's BS behind what they're saying. one of the things, this person here, they QRT'd this reply and said, the funniest thing is when an indie company says that structural leaks are inevitable for the entire Korean film industry, they probably don't even know why Marvel, Star Wars, and all other movies had their world premieres in Korea. They must have just been thinking that something like Korea, which poor underdeveloped country is that. If we hand over the files, they'll steal them, right? Which that turns into a whole thing where they're essentially kind of accusing Glitch of assuming that Korea is underdeveloped and that they would allow this to get leaked. Someone even said, what Glitch is insinuating is honestly just rude. Canceling the contract with Korea and then make a statement talking about safety concerns presents an entire country as untrustworthy. This is really unprofessional. Someone then tried to reply, it has nothing to do with what the country it is and everything to do with that they wanted raw footage of the movie before release. Anyone having that, no matter the country before release, is a possible leak. Several Korean people have spoken up and said that is not true at all. There's another person that spoke on this where they said, we're not angry just because we have to watch the finale 2 weeks later. Because of Glitch's one-sided contract cancellation, our country distributor ended up taking the damage. This is some stuff they broke down here. If I can open up the image. So they canceled it because they were afraid the movie file might leak during the rating process. That explanation makes no sense. We were already in the middle of the official classification process. You agreed to the contract while fully aware that a DCP file would be required for the film rating process. So already, like they said, this is on Glitch 100%. They should have read the contract. And if they did read the contract, they would have known that they would have required a file of sorts, a USB drive to be sent to the distributor to be able to review this. So they're getting caught in lies. And this is where now my sympathy for Glitch is starting to wear thin. Because now it's starting to sound like they're trying to find excuses to give these and excuse my language, but these half-assed explanations on why they're pulling these movies out. And I'm not liking that. Why can't y'all just be a little more honest with your audience here and be like, hey, we made a mistake. We bit off more than we could chew and realized that there was just some of this stuff that we didn't really feel comfortable doing, and then we decided to back out. And here's the problem. This isn't the indie scene anymore, Glitch. This is the real world. This is real film distributors. These are real theaters. These are real people that work with these big time companies that do not play with this kind of stuff. They do not play with this. You cannot make an agreement, a contractual agreement with this studio, this distributor, to release your movie to their country and then say, I don't really feel like it, and pull it out. That is a major breach of contract, and that is why we're now reaching to a point where Korea and this distributor we want to take you to court because, listen, we don't want to go and just sue you, but you're leaving us no choice because you made an agreement for this movie to release in our country, and now you're trying to back out of it? It don't work like that, Glitch. You have to do better. And even people have been noticing that Glitch, they're starting to open up positions of hire for head of HR global, which that also starts to bring another question. Does that mean that Glitch never had intentions to go global with their series or this movie and they were underprepared? That's what it just sounds like. It's that the studio, Glitch, they were underprepared. They focused so much on trying to be breaking the mold. They wanted to really step out and do good for the indie scene, that they bit off more than they could chew, and now they're doing more damage for the indie scene. Because let me ask you this. If another indie creator or an indie studio, an independent studio decides, I want to maybe do something where I can release my film to a theater, do you know that because of this, it's going to put a bad rep? Because those distributors are going to sit back and be like, wait a minute, remember when we tried to do this with that Glitch Entertainment for that digital Circus finale, and they broke our contract and tried to back out of it, and even tried to throw us under the bus like we were the problem, when really it was them that didn't do their research on our contract when they signed it? Why should we go through that hassle again? So they're doing more damage than good, and I don't like that. And I love Glitch, I really do, and I love the shows that they're doing, but man, y'all should have handled this so much better. But again, I'm getting distracted. I'm going to continue reading this here. Some of you might have even read ahead of me, but I'm going to continue reading. You approved all of this yourselves. Importantly, our distributor requested a DCP file, not the original source files. DCPs already support standard encryption specifically to prevent unauthorized access, illegal viewing, or leaks. Also, South Korea is actually very lenient when it comes to film ratings. So this is also discussing about how they're trying to claim that South Korea was trying to restrict their movie, or was trying to like censor their film, and they're essentially trying to make themselves sound like the heroes, like, well, we're fighting against them trying to censor our movie. And this person says also South Korea is actually very lenient when it comes to film ratings. LGBTQ plus and queer films are screened openly in major multiplex theaters here without censorship or cuts, not just in small indie cinemas. So why exactly was the contract terminated halfway through the process? Our distributor did nothing wrong, so why should they be forced to carry all the financial burden for this? Let me see here. It's loading a little slow. I do apologize. This is because it's, come on now, move a little faster. Like, this is supposed to be a really high-end gaming computer, and it's moving this slow. My bad. Stop hiding behind the fans and avoiding responsibility like children. Glitch Productions, we want a proper explanation. We're exhausted from people insulting Korean fans without even understanding the situation. And if there's anyone dividing the fandom right now, it's you, Glitch. And I agree, because that's what's sadly happening. They have that statement they gave is throwing Korea under the bus, like they're the problem, like they're the reason that this is having issues, when it sounds more like the immature people in the room right now is Glitch themselves. And really all people are asking for is an official statement, something to something to be honest with your fans, because this is getting tiring. And Turkey, they came, fan account Turkey, they even kind of broke down some things more. A worker in the cinema industry made a comment regarding a Korean related topic. After Glitch Productions' statement, a user who said they worked in the cinema industry said the following about the topic. Here I'll only quote the important parts. I'll leave the full text in Turkish and English below and include a source for those who want it. Let me drink my water here, because this looks like this is going to be long, people. Give me one sec here. All right, here we go. First of all, I have no connection to the current distributor company, and naturally, I wouldn't know their internal matters. Film leak concern. In South Korea, when a film is submitted for age classification censorship, the importer distributor company is required to present the final screening copy of the film to the Korea Media Rating Board, KMRB. This final screening copy is exactly the same as the format used in cinemas. This format is called DCP. This DCP format is an industry standard worldwide and includes basic encryption. It is a security measure designed to prevent unauthorized individuals from randomly accessing the film, watching it without permission, and leaking it. For these encrypted data to be usable, the encryption must be remotely unlocked, and nowadays restrictions are even imposed so they can only be played on cinema screening servers for a specific period of time. Since this process, extending from censorship to distribution and screening, has been tested multiple times and its reliability proven, production companies around the world, including Disney and UPI, which I think that's Universal Pictures maybe, are able to hold world premieres for screenings in South Korea. Conclusion: there is no possibility of the film being leaked. Shipping via mail concern. The claim that the distributor company sent the film to the censorship institution via mail is valid for South Korea and is a fact. Although there are exceptions, the KMRB generally receives the relevant film materials for censorship via mail and or hand delivery. However, there's absolutely no possibility that this process could lead to a security vulnerability. The reason is that the encrypted data is copied onto a storage unit and sent. Even if someone stole the package containing storage devices like an HDD or flash drive in this process without the authority to decrypt it, they would just be useless chunks of data. Conclusion: shipping via mail does not cause any security issues. Calendar schedule issue. The Korea Media Rating Board conducts censorship primarily based on the final screening copy. The final screening copy means that post-production CG processes, color grading, etc. are completely finished. That's the process that goes into animating a movie. That's the stuff they have to go and do with making sure that the product is finished. And I suppose this is the part that's causing the current issue. However, KMRB implements a system called rating reservation for such situations. If the film is not yet completed and the schedule is very tight, an application is made first and it allows the film to be delivered up to the latest deadline required for it to be censored and released. In the current situation, the release date was set for June 5th, even with some flexibility, as long as the film was completed by the end of May at the latest. It would theoretically be manageable, though a bit challenging. However, since the contract was terminated starting from early May, one can't help but wonder, was the schedule issue really the main reason? Conclusion: even if the film is not completed right now, there were sufficient solutions available. So basically, it goes and breaks down how it's like a lot of the stuff Glitch tried to say is like, dude, nothing you're saying is making sense. What could be maybe the issue in what they're trying to suggest here is it sounds more like Glitch didn't have this movie ready. And that's where the problem came in, is that they didn't have this movie ready to really send this copy over for Korea to review it, and that's where the problems start coming. But now they're turning this into where there's security concerns. We don't want this movie to get leaked, or we don't want our movie to get censored, when really everybody is finding ways to prove that is not the case and wouldn't happen if they were to go through with this. So it's just more and more they're getting caught in lies, and I don't like that. But our final statement here that we're going to have, and I know that this topic has gone on long, but like I said, there's just a lot going into this, and this was one of the biggest topics I wanted to talk about tonight. And before we do end, this is going to be our last statement that we got from another person. Statement on the termination of the theatrical distribution agreement for TADC, Digital Circus. I might have to take another little sip of water here, guys. Gonna take one more little sip here. I'm also gonna end that poll. I didn't see anybody reply to that, so I might make a post on my YouTube channel for people to look over and see if they could also vote there if they think I should do a live reaction to the NFL schedule release on Thursday night. All right, here we go. Really didn't want to bring this up, probably. First of all, I really am a diehard fan of Digital Circus. I'm writing to express my profound disappointment and anger regarding Glitch's mishandling of the recent situation or releasing an official statement. Let me see something here, just to make sure. Yeah, that's just the poll thing. Okay. The priority should have been an apology to the countries excluded from the premiere rather than prioritizing self-defense. In South Korea, fans of the amazing Digital Circus are currently in a state of outrage due to the sudden exclusion from theatrical screenings. As a professional corporate entity, Glitch has a responsibility to ensure that its official statements are based on accurate facts. The South Korean side has suffered significant damages due to Glitch's unilateral contract termination. The local distribution company is a small firm with fewer than 100 employees, driven solely by their passion for Digital Circus. They worked tirelessly to bring this indie animation to a wider domestic audience. They were at the very final stages of the screening approval process when Glitch's abrupt cancellation invalidated all their efforts and resulted in substantial losses. What is most frustrating is that South Korea does not fall under any of the reasons Glitch cited for the contract terminations. First, regarding censorship, South Korea has been very liberal screening laws, as evidenced by the theatrical release of intense and provocative works like Squid Game, Parasite, and 12/12 the day. There would have been absolutely no legal or cultural barrier to screening TADC. Squid Game is a very popular Netflix series, which is true, yeah. So, and that has been a very violent show. So it doesn't make sense why all of a sudden they would be like, oh, we don't want Digital Circus to be shown. And from what I've seen, Digital Circus, I wouldn't say gets that doesn't really get violent like Squid Games or even Parasite. So that gets blown out of the water of just like a lie. Second, regarding security, Glitch's primary concern, content security, is fully addressed by the use of DCP, Digital Cinema Package. The global industry standard DCP files consist of encrypted video, JPEG 2000, audio MXF, and subtitles XML. These are encrypted using AES, Advanced Encryption Standard, a military-grade security protocol. Even if a server were compromised, the data remains useless without the specific digital key. Logically speaking, there was no valid reason for our contract to be terminated. Many other countries besides ours are feeling alienated and ignored by this decision. Ultimately, what we demand are the clear facts and a sincere stance regarding this matter. For indie animation to truly evolve and grow, we urge you to make more prudent and wise decisions in the future. And yeah, like I said, my closing remarks on this is reading all of this and seeing these facts. Glitch is getting caught in lies. And I don't like that, because this could have been easily resolved if they just came out truthfully, admitted that they weren't properly prepared for this, and they panicked and decided to start backing out. And that is why they couldn't respond to emails, and just they were overwhelmed. I wish they would have came out like that, because even I have to agree with this. That was not a good professional way to respond to this decision, because it comes off like you're putting blame on Korea, like they're the problem, when in reality it comes off more, this is all coming off more like you're the problem. And again, you guys have heard on my show, I am very pro indie. I love seeing independent projects be able to go out there and be able to set these standards. And it just sucks to see someone that was really looking like they were doing good for independent animation is now doing more harm. And I feel bad for all these countries that have sadly had to experience this alienation, especially not getting any official statement that feels like it really gives a good answer. And yeah, it just overall sucks. It leaves a bad taste in my mouth with this premiere, and it's just like, man, it makes me even just feel like I don't even want to go to the theater to see this, to support them, because now it's just like, man, this has left such a bad taste. Why would I want to support these people that have handled this so poorly? And I've even seen fans that I'm starting to agree with them, where there's fans being like, man, this all could have been avoided if they just stuck with their original release plan of just releasing this on YouTube for free and everybody get to watch it. They probably would have hit some milestones and views and would have made money back for this episode instead of doing all of this. And it just is tiring. It's tiring to see this. This could have been handled so much better. And it just sounds like to me that Glitch was unprofessional. They didn't know what they were doing. They bit off more than they could chew. And now they're facing the consequences where they're alienating all these countries and all these fans from these countries. And I don't know what's going to happen now. I don't know if they're going to get sued. I don't know if they will finally reach an agreement where they can get it released. But even like the Turkey account said, we're almost a month away from the release. It's almost like it's too late to go back now. Now that all this has happened, I don't know if there's enough time to be able to get everything ready and set for this movie to come out. So I don't know. I know this was a long topic, but it's one I'm very passionate about and one I just felt had to be discussed. Again, share your opinions in the chat or comment, especially if I have any Digital Circus fans that are tuning in to watch. What do you think about this news about the Digital Circus finale? Do you stand by Glitch's side that they weren't doing this intentionally and that Korea is the problem, or do you stand with Korea? I think, in my opinion, I feel that there's been enough evidence that would suggest Korea's not the problem here. Glitch is, and Glitch needs to get it together. They need to grow up, because this is not the indie scene anymore. This is real companies, businesses, real distributors for films that you're dealing with, and you're affecting them, and they can't play around with their money and time like this. So I hope this gets resolved, and I hope this reaches a resolution where everybody's happy, but I sadly just don't see that happening. But who knows? Anything is possible. I believe in a God that it can make miracles happen. So we'll just have to wait and see. But again, I'll keep you posted on that if anything changes. But again, I'm glad for everybody that tuned in. I apologize for the issues that we ran into when it came to making the show come on as late as it did. I know that might have affected any views, but hey, I was still going to get this episode out as soon as I could. So for anybody that did tune in, I just want to thank you for showing support. I love you guys. I will be making another poll on my YouTube channel, and if I will be going live to do a live reaction on the NFL schedule releasing. As always, we'll be doing Fl33tway's Roundup comes on at Tuesday nights, 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, 8:30 p.m. EST, Eastern Standard Time, and 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So again, y'all take care. Love you guys. Check you on the later flavor.